New Zealand's under-twos have only ever known life in a pandemic. Periods of isolation, masks, greetings through windows. Early childhood teachers like Imogen Held are trying to keep life for them as normal as possible.
All teachers are trying really hard not to let it impact our interactions with the children, and then we go home ourselves and hopefully there's a support network to support us after doing that all day.
But COVID-19 finds its way into gaps and inequities and lays them bare. We saw this in Auckland when Delta raged through emergency housing. We saw lockdowns push some into homelessness.
If I had to, I'd sleep at internet cafes or park benches.
COVID is also making gender inequities worse. Early childhood teachers are historically low paid. When schools closed, Imogen watched as colleagues took unpaid leave to look after their kids.
How is that not harming the teachers with all they can think about the whole time is how will I pay my bills, how will I cover the expenses, how I put food on the table for my family. And then yet, going to work and trying to be the best teacher they can, but at the back of their mind thinking, what if I get COVID? How am I going to make things work?
As Dr. Holly Thorpe discovered through her research into the pandemic's impact on women, for many heterosexual couples, the decision on who cuts back on work is financial.
When families are having to make these difficult decisions, often it is based on who is bringing in the more significant income. And with the existing gender pay gap, that means it's often men's jobs and professions that are being prioritised in these decisions.
Women are also more likely to lose their jobs. We saw this from the very first lockdown. In the June quarter of 2020, 90% of the 11,000 New Zealanders who lost their jobs due to COVID-19 were women.
And we saw actually women's employment take a bigger hit because they were employed in the likes of the service industries and hospitality.
Sharon Zollner, chief economist at ANZ, says after that dip, employment bounced back to record highs. But now that COVID is in every community, women will likely take the hit again.
The sectors that are suffering are sectors like hospitality, where young people and women are overrepresented. So I think there is still perhaps a job security issue there.
For some women, it will be particularly acute. Pākehā women will suffer less impact than Māori and Pacific women, or women with disabilities. And there's a second warning. The pandemic has created an economic climate of inflation, which could intensify the gender pay gap.
And how fast you come out of that situation and get a fairer deal is to some extent going to depend on how proactive you are in asking for a pay rise. The evidence suggests that men are a bit better at that than women.
Then there's unpaid work.
So women are definitely picking up a lot of emotional labour. They're having to make decisions, day-to-day decisions about risk calculations for their families, for themselves, for their children.
That can mean a burden of stress. This extremely honest out-of-office email reply from one of the press secretaries at Parliament is an example of what Dr. Holly Thorpe is talking about. It reads, "Kia ora, I'm currently going mad, isolating with my whānau and have bugger all capacity to do any mahi. I'll be checking emails periodically in between cleaning the house, answering the same questions 100 million times, arguing with teens about chores while trying to get work done. I encourage you to lower your expectations. My production rate is about to plummet. Ngā mihi kiri." If there's sick family to look after, stress levels go up and paid work hours go down. The government knows women are hit hard by COVID, meaning that women are more susceptible to economic hardship and less resilient against COVID-19's economic impacts. But Grant Robertson's big economic recovery fund, the Shovel Ready Fund, went to infrastructure projects, to male-dominated industry.
I think that those industries that were targeted were really important because that was to get the economy moving again.
The OECD is urging governments to pursue targeted policy to close gender gaps and level the playing field.
What we did realise as a government that we did need to do more work for women.
Targeted funding for women has been minimal, but Jan Tinetti, Women's Minister, insists changes are coming.
We know that pay negotiations can be difficult for women at times, and so therefore we're really interested in pay transparency.
And could the door be opening to more subsidised childcare?
We're also looking at the barriers towards putting women in that situation of the precarious nature of the work that they do. And so An example of that is childcare.
The pandemic is also creating a job shortage because of those off caring or isolating and a lack of immigration, which could be a silver lining for women.
Women are getting a chance perhaps to do more roles where they haven't had the traditional experience that employers might think were necessary. So that's a real plus. But it's not going to suddenly overnight change attitudes.
That would take a bigger shake-up than a global pandemic.
I think I've only ever seen one female plumber in my life. I wanted to go up to her and shake her hand.
If you've always dreamt of fixing hot water cylinders, ladies, 2022 could be